Have you guys heard about the idea of using life stories as a tool for our loved ones as they age?
I have and have done some stuff with it for Matt.
I've heard about it. We never used it. So I am very interested to learn what it is and how it can be used and the purpose of it and why we use life stories.
Yeah, so we didn't do anything like that either. Well, not really. I mean, I guess we did inadvertently, but I had never heard of the concept. But I know that we've gotten some messages and we've heard from some people who have done things like created picture books of their loved ones' lives to use with staff that are new or in nursing homes or in rehab facilities where the staff might not know the history of their loved one. And it seems like a really good idea for people to document their loved one's life in an effort to mark A, what they can and can't do from a skill level, and B, from a who they are standpoint too. In an effort to communicate, this isn't always how they've been.
Right. And I did the I call it Matt's memory book. And it started off, I went to a website online. I used Smilebox to create these pages. And it started off with some of the things Matt was doing at that time. And then Matt loved this book. And I made it. It's really it's like an 8x8 album. And I was going to just take it to the house when there was new staff because I wanted them, because Matt doesn't speak. He can't tell people that he used to muck horse stalls. And so that was why I did it. Well, Matt fell in love with it because, he's the center of the attention in that book. All the pictures are of Matt. And so I went back and added to it, and it has Matt's story from his birth. And what I would do was in Smilebox, I could create a page. And I'll use the horses as an example. They had like a Western theme, and then I could dump the pictures in. So I could put 3 pictures in, I could put 5 pictures in. And then I wrote a little narrative. So it's not like lots and lots of words, but it's enough that staff knew that were new to Matt. They would know that Matt could actually muck stalls, and he would put the stuff in the wheelbarrow, and he would walk the wheelbarrow over to the dump pile, and he would lift. I mean, he did all the steps. And I have photographs to show that. And I've had staff who have looked at it going, I had no idea Matt could do this stuff because he can't do a lot of stuff now, so it's been a wonderful tool. More recently, I've learned that Matt has taken pages that he really likes and carries them around with him. So I probably need to grab hold of it and refill the pages and stuff. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to picture the visual of this, though, Jadene. So is this like photo album, a binder? Does it have plastic pages you're taking in and out the actual photographs and then putting notes? So it's like an old school kind of photo album, but...
Well, kind of. This one, you could do it that way. The way I did it was I create the page, so I upload the photo into Smilebox, and so then the photos are placed on the page wherever they have, and you can move stuff around. So I could, if I didn't like the layout, I could move those, where the photos are laying on the page. And then I write right in Smilebox. And then you can have whatever platform you're using print out a little book.
Okay, so it's a printed photo album, basically.
But it's more than photos. It's more than photos. It has the story that accompanies the photos. So, and the other thing, and Matt's neurologist asks for this a lot, is get videotapes. Well, it's hard to do that. I'm not around him in enough scenarios to get a variety of videotapes to see things that he's doing. Staff is pretty good about sending me little video clips So I could certainly save those in a folder and create a kind of a story of Matt's life through those video clips. That's one other way to do it. So there are lots of ways that we can, and I think it's important.
And this is what I was hearing from the people that we've talked to or that we've heard from who have told us about this. It seems like there could be two different purposes and two different types of things that go in there. One is to tell the story of the person, likes and dislikes, history, family, pets, where they lived, that sort of thing. And paint a picture for new staff just to get to know the person as a whole person. But it seemed like there's another side to it, which is almost like, do you remember when we talked about the EDSD and we talked about the importance of documenting their ability in the activities of daily life, the ADLs? It seemed like there was a secondary part of this life story tool that is used as documentation or observation of their skill level too, so that it can be tracked over time in a way maybe that's a little bit more objective than a subjective chart where individuals are saying their own perspective of how they're doing brushing their hair. You've actually got video of them brushing their teeth or cooking a meal or whatever. Am I correct in thinking that those are the two parts or two uses?
Yeah. I mean, well, and really, I don't know that it's two different uses, because you can see from the photo album that I put together for Matt, that 5 years ago, he was doing things that he couldn't do now. So you're still seeing that progression. A video, you're going to see it more clearly.
Yeah.
We have a video of Matt when, a lot of families talk about their loved ones beginning to lean to one side. And it's a concern, because it causes walking issues and sitting issues and a lot of, gait problems and that kind of thing. And I have video of Matt on one of the days when it was very pronounced, and that kind of stuff. That's about life stories. Matt has gone from running to now he walks with extreme care. He's holding on to staff more. And those are the things that we can capture through video or through, I love to write stories about Matt. So, writing is another way of keeping track. And I can tell you that this is not Matt, but my mom used to just keep a calendar had pretty good sized squares in it. And she would just make a couple of notes on each day. So we could go back. When she died, my sister and I found these old calendars, and we could go back and relive her life for 5 years, because
fun.
She just journaled right in her calendar. So I guess the point I'm making is that when we think of life stories, we don't have to write a book. I wrote a book about Matt's life, but you don't have to write a book. You can put 3 words down on today's date in the calendar, hang on to those calendars, and then you can look back.
But I also like the idea that, because I wouldn't have known to do this, or I wouldn't have thought to do this. I have videos of Kathy doing really cute things. I do not have videos of Kathy doing everyday kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I would have loved to have heard, because she stopped doing those things. And I don't actually remember like when those points of change happened, because it's kind of insidious, right? So having a time when you're doing it like once a year or every couple years, I don't know. It seems like an easy thing to do that could make a difference or help you see changes earlier than you might. What do you think, Kristin?
I like the idea of documenting things. I wish we would have done more of it. You don't, when you're living it and you're in the moment, you just don't. I wish I had more videos and pictures and things of the everyday things, even the special things. But even, some people are just so good at keeping archives of those types of things. In a way, I guess we did our own life story when I made that video for my parents, and that you have seen, both of you have seen.
Yeah.
And
so, Kristin, can you explain to the listeners a little bit about what the video was? Because it was like interviews and pictures, and
Sure.
I mean, it was
So,
like a big thing.
I mean, it was a professional production. I hired somebody to do this, but you wouldn't have to do this. When Matthew was declining, I thought, I want something to be made so that we have something forever to remember Matthew and his story and all the things that people love about him. So we had a family reunion in 2021, and we weren't sure at that point how much time we had left. We were in the middle of hospice. And during that family reunion, I hired a videographer to come out and interview all of our cousins, aunts, uncles, my kids, my nephew, my brother, my other brother. And I had prepared questions that the videographer asked the cousins and family. And, it was, what do you love most about Matthew? Or when I say Matthew Scheidt, what comes to mind? Or what's one of your favorite memories about Matthew? So we did 2 days worth of interviews from morning till night. And I gathered a bunch of different pictures and videos, and then he put them together and made it into this beautiful 12-minute production of Matthew's life. So for 2 years, we watched it with Matthew all the time. And every single time Matthew watched it, because there were pictures in there from 1971 all the way through 2021. And every time we would watch it, we would gather everybody around my parents' TV, anybody that would come over, we'd say, hey, we want to show you Matt's video. And Matthew he would smile. He would recognize people in the videos. He would just have like tears of joy. I mean, even at the very end when he couldn't speak and when we didn't really think, we weren't sure if he was processing things, even if he couldn't see the video, he was listening to it, and he would just like a little tear would just come out of his eye. And we're like, oh my gosh, he still, he can hear this, and this makes him emotional. And it's such a special gift to have to this day. So I would just suggest take videos, take pictures, put it together, ask people. I mean, even those things. So many of these stories I hadn't heard from some of my cousins and family and friends, right? We all have our own stories about our loved ones just with our experiences. But I love hearing the things that went down between Matthew and some of my cousins that, when they'd go trying to pick up chicks and look for the hot girls and, and take it, give him beer when he wasn't supposed to have beer or something like that. So, I mean, those are great, that's life. And so they're really heartfelt and meaningful.
I love it. And like you said, well, first of all, what a great gift.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really great gift. So kudos to you for having that idea.
Gift giving is one of my love languages. So that's my love language.
It's for sure true. But like you said, I mean, everyone's got a camera in their pocket. You don't need to hire a videographer. You don't have to do it at a family reunion. You can do it yourself with the knowledge that things, for all of us, it's not just our loved ones, but we change as we get older.
Yeah.
And we want the people who take care of us or who are in our orbit to know us as whole people.
Yeah.
Right. And not just by our limitations at the moment.
Right. And one of the reasons behind me putting together the book that I did for Matt was that because he can't tell staff, I used to do this and, this is my favorite food and stuff. I wanted staff to have things that they could have conversations with Matt about, even if they're one-sided conversations, but they can talk about, hey, Matt, I didn't know you volunteered at the VA. That is so cool. I saw pictures of you, handing out newspapers or playing balloon volleyball, which is something you really love to do. So, that was part of the reason I wanted to do that, because then they're not just sitting there staring at Matt, but they know what Matt's interests were and what kinds of things he used to be able to do. So it gives them just a kind of a doorway into who he is and can spark
some ideas,
conversations.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe even ideas for for a day trip. Like, let's go see the horses. Let's.
Right.
Well, in Jadene, I learned in one of our last episodes that he loves iced coffee. Does he still, and when you talked about the iced coffee routine, does he still like the iced coffee? Is that part of his routine?
He does. He does like iced coffee. I just heard from the staff that's with him in the first half of the week had given him coffee in the morning, and we've been having issues. He's slowing way down on how much fluid he's taking in.
Mm-hmm.
And so Noah had gotten him a coffee, and he drank maybe half of it. And then Noah went Wendy's or somewhere to get something to eat. And Matt was like, "Oh, iced coffee." So he chugged the drink that he had so that he could have because he likes caramelized coffee. That's his beverage of choice.
Like, where did that even start? Matthew never drank coffee. Like, that was not even, I think, maybe we offered it to him. I was like, where'd this iced coffee thing come from?
I don't know when he started drinking coffee. I don't know. He drank coffee for years. So, I don't know. I don't know when he started. I mean, he was not drinking coffee when he moved out of our home, but he was 23, 24, and he's 51 now.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the line, somebody that was working with him probably bought an
Introduced him
iced
to
coffee and he took it from them. That's probably how it happened, because Matt is known to take your drink if it looks
Be
good
a little
to him.
grabby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was Kathy a coffee drinker, Molly?
She was.
Oh.
Because
Yeah,
it
to
was
me,
very.
that's just so foreign. Yeah.
No, I'll tell you why. Because it was very adult.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so her mom and dad both had, would have coffee in the morning. And when she became an adult, she was allowed to start having coffee. And that was such an adult thing for her. And she had her favorite coffee mugs. And then when Starbucks became a thing, because you got to remember, we're old enough that she became an adult before
Yeah.
Starbucks
was a thing.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So then when Starbucks became a thing, that was like the cool adult thing. And she would ask to go to Starbucks to have a latte or an iced coffee or something like that, because it was very sophisticated.
I love it.
Matt's a cheap date. His favorite coffee is McDonald's caramelized coffee. So yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
So, okay. So I want to just go back to this whole, like if we were to say, because I almost think this life story, it's a thing, but it's maybe a thing that's already been in existence that people use and do without even realizing they do it. I mean, the idea is, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe putting together some type of photo album or photo book or video montage or something in order to, one, maybe help staff or people that are working with our loved ones, right? Is that part of that, right? And then the other part, which I'm maybe just making up, or is this a thing, is for our loved one to be able to, for them, right? It's for them to look at their life and look at pictures from the past or things that they used to do, or these are all the people that love you. I mean, in a way, it kind of
Right.
reminds me of, almost little books and albums I would make for my kids as they were growing up. Like, who loves Elizabeth? Who loves Stephen? And it was all the pictures of who love them and things they like to do. So I kind of see that as twofold. One, it's used to help other people working with them, whether that's staff or, medical personnel.
Right.
And then the other side of it is it's so beneficial for a person that is aging and has Alzheimer's, because the long-term memory can stick around.
That's the stuff
and
that
those
stays,
are the things,
yeah.
and even the pictures of the past, even more so maybe when they were younger than the current day stuff. I mean, those are things that I noticed that Matthew would almost connect with more when he was looking at pictures of growing up in Africa or as a teenager or doing Special Olympics, track and field. And those seem to almost resonate more with him than some of the everyday stuff that was happening in the moment. So am I capturing this correctly?
I think so.
Okay.
I think, I think so too. And And to your point, Kathy even had trouble recognizing herself as an older person in pictures. She would say, no, that's not me. So yeah, I think it's a nice topic of conversation, right? It's it's a feel good topic of conversation. It helps them feel safe. I think it helps them feel successful too, because they know the answers to it. And, everyone wants to be reminded of how much they're loved and how much fun they have, and how valuable
Right.
they are to the
Right.
world, right? And as a caregiver, I don't know, we didn't do specific life stories, but I would always go through old albums and with Aunt Kathy, especially as the Alzheimer's was progressing. And I loved to see it too, like, oh my gosh, look at how cute you were as a baby, or who's that pretty girl running in the Special Olympics, like breaking the tape at the end of the race, or her dog, pictures of her dog that had
Yeah.
died 40 years
Yeah.
ago.
Well, and I think you
things
bring
like
up a good point about just going through old photo albums. So when Matthew got to the point where he was at home and with hospice, and we had hospice volunteers and different people coming in and out, that was one of the things that we, over the years, I had made all kinds of different scrapbooks for my parents for Matthew's milestone birthdays. And my mom had tons of albums from growing up. And so I would pull all of those out and hand them to the volunteer that was there for the day and say, you know what, if you're looking for something to do with Matt, sit with him and go through these albums. And some of them had letters that people had written to him for his 25th birthday or 40th birthday. And I think, that's a great way to engage someone that's working with our loved one, because it's hard to know if you don't know them, right? It's hard to know really what to do with them. And it gives them the insight into their life and what they were like. And then it gives the opportunity for our loved one to be able to connect again with something that's familiar to them. Which also brings me to another point. One of the things when Matthew was in the hospital for 3 weeks after his grand mal seizure, my dad had brought in a letter that Matthew had written maybe to my mom and dad. I don't remember exactly what it was. And when a doctor or a nurse would walk in the room, all they would see is this 50-year-old person with Down syndrome that they couldn't tell what capacity he had, because he was really in a different state than he was prior to the big seizure. So my dad handed every nurse and every doctor and really made them stop for a minute and say, I want you to take a minute and read this letter so you know the kind of person that Matthew is. Because if you walked in there, you would look at him and say, oh, he probably can't read or write or didn't really, do much. And it gave them a different perspective, I think, almost on how they approached him as a patient, which I think is so...
And maybe even the care they gave him.
Yes, which I think is so important.
So I'm glad you brought up hospital, because I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the women who mentioned this to us, her method of doing a life story wasn't really, I don't think it was a book. It was like posters that she put up in the hospital room on the walls of her brother's life story, so that when the nurses and doctors came in, they were right there, pictures and narratives and like the top 10 list of things that, I can't remember his name, but the things that Joey loves, right? Things to talk to him about. And she mentioned how it impacted the quality of care that he got too.
I think that's so true, because I think if people do not take time to see our loved ones for who they are and who they have been, they're just a person, and this sounds horrible, but they're just a person with a disability. And in our society, we really don't value folks with disabilities. And I think that makes such a huge difference. And I even mentioned that in my book on gifts, is that those people who took time to really get to know Matt and see beyond, his frustration. He had a lot of frustration because he doesn't speak, he doesn't communicate with words. So people typically either they discount what he's capable of, or they think he just doesn't care. And then he got frustrated. And so we would have, some more challenges and stuff. So I just think finding ways that we can let other people into their world to know what amazing folks they are. I think this is such an important gift that we can give our loved ones is to help other people know them. I want to add something that, while we were talking, that popped in my mind. There's something about, for Matt, and I think I'm hearing the same thing from the two of you. There's something about Matt seeing pictures of himself. And I have been able to use photographs of him to help him calm down. We recently had that episode on anxiety. And that's one way that I can, when Matt starts escalating and the anxiety is getting stronger, I can say, hey, Matt, look at this. And we start flipping the book, or we're in my phone and we're looking at the album that's Matthew. And he just gets so enthralled with his own photos that he will settle back down. So I find that as another way to use those life stories as kind of a tool to help with anxiety.
Yeah, you ground them in some like good feelings from the past and put them in that world again.
Yeah. Well, and Jadene, I think of your Matt a lot when going back to that episode on anxiety, when Ruth discussed, which I think is so important, when she discussed the receptive language ability of our folks with Down syndrome, right? Because your Matt has challenges with the expressive language, I do believe in all the things that you've said and the things that we've learned about him, he can take in a lot more than he's given credit for.
Absolutely.
And he knows what's going on. It's the frustration and the challenge of getting back out what he needs to communicate. So I think even, especially in cases like yours and probably others that have similar situations, things like this, I think, can be really important and helpful for that receptive language processing and, maybe helping with the anxiety part of it, if it's something that calms them down by looking back through pictures. But I just don't want to ever discredit that piece of it that, they know and understand a lot more than we give them credit for and think. And I just want to keep reiterating that because that's important when we're working with other people that are working with them, even in this aging process.
Yes.
And Kristin, I think that goes back to the values part, right? Jadene, when you talked about values, it brought me back to the idea that while Kathy was very accomplished in her life, her value as a person is not tied to those accomplishments. And I think you're right in that the type of things that the world values are not necessarily the things that are at least forwardly evident in some of our loved ones. And so this tool, this life story that you can put together is your opportunity to explain and point out and identify and point to, these are the things that are valuable about my loved one. And I'm going to tell you about them. And these are the things that you can value in them too.
Right.
That aren't maybe evident to everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to discount the fact that I do think, and this was a part of it that I had never considered before, is the documentation as part of the annual EDSD observations. I think it doesn't, maybe we're talking about two separate things here, but it sort of feels like they're kind of related. This documenting just some mundane things that you've sort of put a stake in, that these are the things we're going to document on an ongoing basis, just to observe changes as well. I think that was something I didn't think about doing.
I agree. And I'm thinking back to pictures that were shared. And I believe it was a sibling. I can't keep straight who's a sibling and who's a parent, but I believe it was a sibling. Doesn't really matter, but they shared pictures of their loved one over a period of time, and you could see the change. And that's that, that's it was in like 4 pictures, you could see the dramatic change in that person.
Yeah.
And how Alzheimer's was changing what they could do, how they looked, and what a powerful tool that would be to take to the neurologist and say, look at this. Here is the last 18 months. Look at the decline that we're seeing this in all aspects of my loved one's life. And here are pictures that illustrate exactly what we're seeing.
And I think it's so, from personal experience, I know when you are so close to the situation and when you see that person all of the time, you don't necessarily notice those changes unless you put them side by side. There are many instances where my mom would say, do you really think he's got Alzheimer's? Do you really think, he's changing that much? I think and I would pull up pictures because, we started taking thousands of pictures at this point, and I'd pull up a picture and I'd say, Mom, this is what Matthew looked like in January, and look at now in June. Look at the difference in 5 months. Now, sometimes it wasn't a significant change. Then other times it was, especially towards the end, but that just brought back memories for me, because when we would put the pictures side by side, and again, when you're seeing it every day, day in and day out, it is hard to notice some of those changes all the time, unless you kind of document them like that.
Once we got the Alzheimer's diagnosis, I started documenting everything just because I didn't know how much longer we would have with Kathy, and I just wanted more stuff of her. But the idea that we should be doing this on purpose before we see changes was a revelation. And I just wanted to bring it up because I thought maybe other people haven't thought of it either. And it's never too early to start putting that stuff together.
And with our cell phones now, I
Right,
think you said earlier, everybody's got a camera in their pocket. It does make it easy. I have so many pictures hiding in my phone. It's just, I took over 12,000 just in France last fall.
Oh my gosh.
I probably took 500 in Idaho. I probably took 500 in Idaho last week. But my point being that families probably have a big leg up on this already. It's just a matter of how do they put them together so that they make sense and that they tell a story,
Right, knowing the goal, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. It makes me think of Kathy's life all over again. And I've got the slideshow playing in my head right now.
Right.
Yeah, but I love the fact that we can just get on here and chat and say things get brought up like, I wish I would have started documenting things before the incident, and right. And because there were so many amazing, beautiful things that Matthew said and did. And I was thinking about a family that we know that they did exactly what we were talking about well before any of the aging and Alzheimer's started. And they made a book of all the sayings that their brother and son said. And it's so cute. And it's so, to go, and I even go back and look at that because some of the things that he said reminded me of the way Matthew would talk. And even this past weekend, I was with a friend and their sister who's on the journey. And she just said so many cute, adorable things. And we were just joking around and we were talking about how old are you and your birthdays. And, and I told her I'm 49 and she said, well, you don't look a day over 20. And I said, well, I'm going to hang out with you. And, we just kind of had this banter back and forth, but some of the things that she said, and after the fact, I thought, I need to go back and text her brother and say, write down some of these. She had some really good one-liners and zingers that are maybe not going to be there down the road. And
probably so typical of her that they haven't thought to document it.
Because that's just who she is and how she is. So this just reminded me to go back to them and say, hey, when she says something funny like that, write it down because you're going to want this. You're going to want to go back and look at it and read it and laugh at it. And those are the things I wish I would have done. Those things are priceless.
Oh, this was a great discussion, you guys.
I agree. It's one of my I don't know, like hot topics, it's like I really encourage people to, to do things to help them monitor their loved one's life and to keep a recording of it, because in the end, it's a gift. It's truly a gift.